Blue Dog Films presents Paid to Dream with Charles Dennis.
Hello, it's Charles Dennis once again with Paid to Dream, and I'm so excited because we're going to the circus today. You got to understand, I grew up with the circus. I love the circus. And here's the guy. This is the ringmaster, formerly of Ringling Bros, now with Circus Vargas, Johnathan Lee Iverson.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. What an introduction. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't often get introduced, so this is wonderful for me.
Well, I took my daughter when she was little to Ringling Brothers, and there you were, in the center ring.
Oh, wow.
Then last year, I took my wife and stepson to see Circus Vargas, and I went, but that's the guy from Ringling Brothers. And I remember there was a break or something, and I chatted with you at the time, and they were just blown away. And of course, she said, "When is Circus Vargas?" I said, "There." She said, "Got the tickets." And then I gave my card to somebody in the staff. I gave it to you as you walked by. You probably thought, "What's this guy doing? He's attacking me with a card." But I'm so glad you didn't call the cops and that you responded.
No, it was wonderful. I mean, listen, I think, your wife is wonderful. She was a great participant in the show, if I recall.
Yes.
She was part of my little shtick I do, where I pick out a contestant, quote unquote, and she was wonderfully cooperative and a lot of fun. I think she got the question right, too.
Well, her birthday's the day after yours, so you're kindred spirits.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah. So I just prefer, I'm so glad you're doing what you do. When I was 6, I went to see The Greatest Show on Earth, the movie. And I was like, wow. And then every Saturday on TV, there was a thing called Super Circus. I don't know a guy called Jack Sterling was the ringmaster with the black mustache and the top hat. And all I remember, and a Mary Hartline was the baton twirler or something, but it was seal tests, and that was my first awareness of how they could get into your mind. I thought super seal test, not super circus. And then I think about, there was also a show called Circus Boy with Mickey Braddock, who then went to his real name, Mickey Dolenz, and was one of the monkeys. And it just was circus all the time. And I was a child actor, and the first film job I ever had was being in an audience of kids. They had filmed a circus in Europe, and they came to Toronto to get the kids. And I sat there for 5 hours eating every kind of crap thing. Isn't this great? I went home and threw up all night. I don't know if they ever, but somewhere is a pilot for this circus show with me. So I've always had this thing for the circus. And then I think of, the ringmasters in movies. Peter Ustinov was the ringmaster in Lola Montez, and Vincent Price was a circus ringmaster in The Big Circus.
Oh, what a voice.
Yeah. But here you are, so enough of that.
That.
So you are the last great exponent of the circus, but you trained as an opera singer.
Yes, that is correct. I got my start in New York City, New York, with the Boys Choir of Harlem. I'm born and bred in New York City, and proud New Yorker. And that really changed my life. I was 11 years old when I entered the choir. I was 13 when I started performing. I didn't know it was a professional group. I didn't know we had to work. And it was the greatest thing for me at that time. That young, I always tell parents to this day, put your children in something where they're going to fail a lot, where they're going to be challenged, especially if it's something that they claim they want to do. And I really wanted to do it. I only really went to the choir because I wanted to travel. Again, I was raised in the heart of New York City. New York City is a melting pot, and you become curious. That's what the joy of being around so many different types of people and personalities, that's what it does for your mind and your imagination. So you want to branch out. And there was just so much exposure for me. And I wanted to travel. And I happened to see this program on local television about this choir, and I'm looking at these kids, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're my age, they look like me, they're knuckleheads like me. Surely I can do that. I sing in church choir. Why not? And I entered into the Boys Choir of Harlem. Fine organization, a lot of fun, very rigorous, very challenging, very hard, but opulently rewarding. The greatest thing to happen to me in my young life. It gave me a place to really feel like I belonged. It gave me a sense of identity early. And it wasn't one of those things, you always hear people, they say, oh, you go to these programs to stay off the street. I wasn't a street kid. I have friends who might have been, but I wasn't a street kid. I really had a really good, stable home, a very loving home, a very peaceful home. So the Boys Choir only enhanced my life even more. And so I ended up on my very first couple of tours when I turned 13, the second of which was going to Japan, which was my first trip overseas. And I mean, it was just quite the year for me. And that's really when my life changed. I saw the great Placido Domingo. We were on the same bill as he. And it was incredible. I heard him sing. I didn't know the human voice could do that. And I said, that's me. That's what I want to do. And so I started pursuing the trek to become an opera singer. And, I was a very fortunate young man. I mean, I had so much support. The Boys Choir of Harlem was littered with a lot of wonderful professional musicians who were also excellent teachers, who, quite frankly, if I had to get lessons from them, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. That was all for free. One of the great shames of my life is that I'm not I'm not competent on the piano. I should be Nat King Cole. I mean, the teachers we had there for free were wonderful. They were excellent, and they were attentive, and they were always willing to share. And they were strict. They were wonderful, but I was lazy when it came to piano.
Well, when I saw the circus last year, and I was just so excited that I said, "That's him. I know him from before." But it wasn't until the last week when we went that I said, "This guy's got pipes. Oh my God!" I mean, did you ever get to do an opera as an adult, or did you?
Oh yes, of course. So here's how it worked out for me.
Yeah.
In the Boys Choir of Harlem, the founding director was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Walter J. Turnbull, who himself was an opera singer, and he basically started the Boys Choir of Harlem to just give the kids something to do, and it grew. And so that became his life. But, I mean, he was an excellent teacher. From there, I went to the Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts High School. Had wonderful teachers there, had wonderful opportunities there. And now this is where my life got even more exciting, because I had a double life. I was still in the Boys Choir, and I was going to the Fame School, the greatest high school on earth, as I always call it till this day. Have great affection. So I was around-the-clock arts education. Then I went on to the University of Hartford, Hart School of Music, on scholarship to study with the great Jerome Pruitt, who was a marvelous tenor, had a great career in Europe, and he was teaching there. And I specifically went to that school to study with him. And not only did I get him, I was also honored to study with the great Dr. Sherry Overholt, who is just this fabulous vocalist and voice teacher. She's actually the voice teacher for the wonderful young jazz singer that's out now. I think her name is Samara, something like that. I can't remember her name, but she's Samara Joy. That's it. She's a teacher. That's one of her many students, and I happen to be one of her many students. And it was just such an excellent education. I graduated the Hart School of Music, and my plan was to run off to Europe to continue my studies. I didn't really want to go to grad school. I wanted to just go where it was, continue my studies, keep growing in the place where opera really thrives. So I had to raise money. I went off auditioning here, there, and everywhere, and I happened to run into an audition for a dinner theater. That so happened, the director of that dinner theater was also directing Ringling Brothers. And so this was unbeknownst to me.
That's from the sublime to the ridiculous. That's a
right.
big canvas.
Exactly. So I auditioned. I get a call later that day, hey, we want you for the dinner theater, but would you be interested in auditioning for Ringmaster? And they were very adamant about this. They said, listen, we want a singing ringmaster. Now, I was very ignorant, like most people are, to circus and its great contributions to music. Circus has a robust musical legacy. I didn't know that. Really, the first, I would say let me think. The first singing ringmaster was a gentleman by the name of Harold Ronk. Can you hold on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, perhaps I'll sing for everyone while Jonathan has left the camera, or I'll just cut it out later. What does it matter? What does it all matter, ladies and gentlemen? It's all part of life's romance. Ha ha. He's gone an awfully long time. I wonder if he'll come back in one of those costumes. It's hard to tell.
Be right back.
He's coming.
Sorry.
I think we can edit your exit.
Okay.
Now he's back.
So yeah, so it was just this interesting thing. I get this call. They said, "Hey, would you be interested in auditioning for Ringmaster of Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey?" Now, to be quite frank with you, when I heard that the first time, I thought, "My goodness, this sounds like some job for the CIA or something." It just sounds so quirky and weird. And they went on to explain to me they wanted a singing ringmaster, which they kept emphasizing. They really want a singing ringmaster, which surprised me because I had no idea about the circus's musical legacy. I was up against 30 others, so it wasn't like something they just gave to me. I had the audition process was pretty rigorous. I had to first there was a live audition, and then back then they recorded me. I was in New York City, so they did a video recording of me saying the famous announcement, "Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages," plus singing a song so they could send it to the producer. That was the great Kenneth Feld, who owned the show then. And then the final audition happened when I was in the middle of doing my contract with the dinner theater. The gentleman by the name of the late, great Tim Holtz was his name. He had the wonderful responsibility of scouring the earth year after year for talent. That was the job I always said in my head when I joined the circus. I said, after this, maybe that's what I want to do, is do that. He had such a great gig. And so he came down where we were in Wisconsin. That's where we were. He flew in to basically hear me live and to just see if this was the real thing. And we worked out my contract, and the rest was history.
Wow. How much competition did you have for the gig?
I know there were 30 others who were up for it.
Yeah.
I didn't really truthfully, I felt in my soul it was mine. It was just the way the director seemed to be really, the director being Philip William McKinley, a marvelous director. He actually directed the great Hugh Jackman on Broadway in The Boy from Oz to his first Tony Award. So he seemed to be advocating for me. So I just knew, I could feel in his energy, he was really pushing me, and quite frankly, the stars aligned, the planets, all of that. It was really in my favor. I could feel it, and I wasn't thinking about any others, and what about that guy or what have you. I just really felt that, the songs felt right in my voice. Everything just felt like this belonged to me, and and that's one of the great lessons in this business of show. Especially for those of us who do a lot of auditioning. I always tell young actors and performers, listen, always go out there and look at it as an opportunity to show your best work, because more than likely you're auditioning for something else. And that's what happened to me. And you hear these stories all the time. If you stick it out, you're going to fit into the place where you're supposed to fit. You're going to get the thing that works for you. And honestly, I have to say, being ringmaster just fits me. it just fits my personality. It fits who I am. It fits my being. It's given me the opportunity to more than use my voice. And that was always the funny thing, when I was going through college. And, my father, who was a wonderful immigrant, God rest his soul, he was from Trinidad and Tobago. And he would always look at me when he would be driving me to school. He would be telling me, what are you going to do with a degree in do, re, mi, fa, sol? And he was always worried about, singing is not work, And so when I got the job, basically right out of college, I mean, it really validated me, how the work I put into my dream. And this became a bigger dream than I had. And that's the thing I always remind people of, your job is to just do the work. Go the way your blood beats, as James Baldwin used to say. Yeah, and the road, it's not always straight. Sometimes it's a marvelous detour. You don't know, but your job is just to do the work. Whatever is in you, whatever that thing that makes you tick, that thing that makes you alive, when you do it, it's not your job to worry about how much money you're going to get or what. It's just do the work. Do the work. Take advantage of the opportunities to display that work. Build relationships. Because I don't care how talented you are. If nobody wants to work with you, it doesn't matter. Make sure you have good relationships. Things like that. And it's amazing. It always happens in a way, at least I've seen it in my life and so many others, it happens in a way that you can't plan. And I think that's God's way of humbling us, so we don't try to hog all the credit. I think, you do your job, you do it well, take advantage of opportunities, be genuine with your relationships, and, there's a surprise waiting for you. That's what I feel. I think there's always a surprise. It never works the way you think it's going to work. It actually tends to work better than you thought it was going to work.
There's a Trinidadian philosophy at work here in the world. Did you ever meet Jeffrey Holder?
Did I ever meet Jeffrey Holder? I was directed by the great Jeffrey Holder at 16 years old.
When what?
The Boys Choir of Harlem and Friends on Broadway. And Jeffrey Holder was our director. Jeffrey Holder, look, I mean, you're talking about one of my icons.
Well,
and this
mine
gentleman,
too.
yeah,
We worked on a lot of projects together.
And so, Jeffrey was just a marvelous, exceeding talent and a brilliant man. And he told me when he would always drop these wonderful nuggets for us when I remember working so hard on that show because we had I put it this way, I was going to school and then we had rehearsals literally, and they told our parents we were going to be at the choir, we were going to be there for a while. We would rehearse up until even 10 p.m. at night. So we had very long hours and we understood the task at hand. And I remember he said to us, he said something that was so charming. He said, listen, he said, I've been before kings, queens, heads of state. He said, they all want to be you. He said, they all want to, because we're artists. We make things. And I just thought, man, that's just so powerful. And he was so wonderful. He was so complimentary to me. He told me to my face, he said, you have what it takes. He told me that. He said, you have what it takes. He said, I can see it. You have what it takes. Keep working on this, that, and other, but you have what it takes. And I was really touched by that because, I grew up with his voice in my consciousness, seeing him, in James Bond and seeing him in the 7-Up commercials, but knowing of his work with The Wiz and things of that nature, he's just iconic to me.
I had pitched a Cyrano to be set in the Caribbean with Richard Pryor, to a producer, George Barry. And while I was working on the script, I turned on The Tonight Show one night, and there was Jeffrey doing the Talking Bee from A House of Flowers. And then the next day I got an invitation to an art exhibition here in L.A. of Jeffrey's work. And I called the woman, I said, will he be here? And she said, he's here right now. Do you want to speak to him? And I remember saying to Jeffrey, I'm basically shy. He said, you're not shy, you're Canadian. You're polite. You're polite. So I said, would you like to direct a musical, a movie musical of Cyrano? And he said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, nothing. I've got to run through the Wiz. Come and see it. So I went down to the rehearsal rooms for the music center, and there was Jeffrey, and everybody was in plain clothes, and 3 people from the cast weren't there. And Jeffrey would jump up from his chair and fill in and play the parts. And I sat there for 2 hours of pure magic. And I saw the show. It was a great show, but it could never touch what I saw that day.
Yeah, he was. Just, oh my gosh,
he was just Mr. Magic.
Yeah, and then there was his Carmen, right? His Carmen. Oh, Carmen de Lava. Oh man, that was the thing that used to impress me most. Out of all those hours of rehearsals, I used to just love that when he Carmen, darling, and I mean just this. You know, he married his muse. You know, she was just this. And she was something wonderful. We had the pleasure of performing with her as well. She was still dancing and dancing quite well. And I mean, so as you can imagine, you know, my time as a teenager, I tell you, it was quite privileged. It really was. I mean, the artists I got to share the stage with and the people I had to work with that young, the heads of state, it was just something even then I knew this was something very special, and I would always have that. And I kind of was proud of myself because I wanted to quit so many times. I wanted to quit so many times because again, the choir was no day at the beach. Every day we would hear witticisms like only the pure in tone will survive. You know, you really had to earn your spot. And it was a good thing. And I was glad that I went through that because I carry that steel in me now with anything in my life. I know I can work my way through something. I know I can endure because, you know, I had to when I was much younger. And, you know, and so having those sorts of people, kinds of people and dynamic people around me, oh my goodness, it was just heaven, I think. It was just amazing.
Why did Ringling Brothers die?
Well, I would say, Ringling Brothers closed. It's now reopened in a new iteration of itself. It's very, very different. There's no ringmaster, there's no clown, there's no animals. So it's very different now. But the Ringling Brothers that we knew, the classic spectacle with beautiful animals and you name it. The reason why, and it made sense to me, was quite frankly operation cost. It was exceedingly expensive, and quite frankly, we weren't. One, the operation cost kept going up. 2, the audience attendance was waning, so you're not really bringing in what you need to maintain that. Plus, you're dealing with the operation costs of just moving the show. It's an extremely expensive show. I mean, we lived on, this is 2 shows, 2 major big shows. We had 2 units and at our height, we had 3 units. So we had 2 units, 2 big units that went to all the major arenas around the country. Both traveled by mile-long, privately owned trains that had full staff that operated like a city on wheels. So that's a huge expense. And, you know, things that, you know, above my pay grade, I'm thinking, you know, the permits and all this stuff you have to go through. So it's a huge expense. And that was mainly the issue. A lot of people believe it was a matter of the animals. And quite frankly, it wasn't actually. Ringling Brothers was actually winning on that front. We never heard it in the news. But Ringling Brothers had recouped $25 million in a RICO suit from the ASPCA and the Humane Society, who has since rebranded themselves. But the Humane Society had to pay Ringling Brothers $15.73 million. The ASPCA had to pay them $9.3 in a RICO suit. And yeah, it was very good. And really the federal judge of the trial, it was like a 14-year long ordeal. And the federal judge finally said, this is vexatious, frivolous, and groundless. And we always knew that. And, the problem is it's hard to get that to the public because, that's not sexy in the press. It's not sexy to actually know that, yeah, actually animals are actually better cared for than most of our children. I mean, we had vet techs on site 24 hours, 7 days a week. We had our own veterinarians who would come in just because. We had veterinarians, local veterinarians. That, I mean, like the cost of just one elephant's care. One elephant was like $65,000 a year. So this was an expense that was just insane. And it wasn't like these animals were eating just regular feed. They were eating top shelf, top notch stuff. I remember one tiger trainer, I used to see him rubbing the meat with this kind of powder substance. And I said, what is that? What is that? His name was Great Alexander Lacey from Britain. And he was always so great. He would always brush his lion's mane and the whole bit. But he was rubbing their meat with this powdery substance. He said, no, this is their vitamins. I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, things. I was like, what are people talking about? Like you live among these creatures. And I mean, it was just insane. The things people would say, and they never could ever back it up with anything substantial. But, I tell you, it was a wonderful life. It was a great time. It was just, it was like living in a just a beautiful dream when we would perform and bring these shows to life for children of all ages. I really loved it. And
you had your wife and kids with you for a while.
Yes,
there too.
Yeah, that was a great highlight for me. I met my wife on the show. My wife came to Priscilla. The beautiful Priscilla came to the show with the first batch of Brazilian dancers, and I always call her my mail order bride because I remember begging Kenneth Fell after my first tour when we were negotiating the second. I said, it would be great if we just had more ladies on the show. Because it just felt like it was a little, my first tour, which was amazing, it just felt a little imbalanced. And I thought if we had more women on the show, it just would be more productive. That really was my mindset. Of course, I was young then too, so I may have had ulterior motives. But it worked. And they brought these beautiful Brazilian dancers who were excellent dancers. And they came with a sense of joy and pride, and they really added to the show so much so that became the go-to. They just kept hiring Brazilian dancers. And my wife
is Priscilla from Brazil?
She is. She's from Rio de Janeiro. She was the dance captain. She was also the translator, so she already knew English. And so she came over. She was their translator. She was a de facto leader, and I was really impressed with that. And the company was impressed with that, so much so because she not only was dance captain, but eventually they started creating positions for her to groom her, to accommodate her leadership abilities. And eventually she became the production manager of the greatest show on earth. That meant she oversaw everything. So my daughter, Lila Simone, she was always fond of telling people, my dad's the ringmaster, but mommy's the boss. Things like that. So the kids, they had a great time. We traveled with them for 8 years on the show. And so they got to see this wonderful country of ours. They went to every conceivable museum, park, you name it. They
had a tutor.
Yes, we had a school. We had 2 teachers who would travel, and we would set up a schoolroom in the venue. And there was a program we used back then. It was the Calvert. It was a Calvert program. It was a program that was based on a private school somewhere in Maryland, I believe, like that. But it was really good. And the teacher was excellent. She was a wonderful lady from India by the name of Manna Kettle. She actually wrote a book called Heart of the Circus where she talks about her experience. I would recommend the book. It's really wonderful. She was such a great teacher to the children. And it was really a remarkable experience. I was kind of jealous of my kids. I told them, I said, this is what I always wanted to give you. I wanted to give you something where you got to really live beyond yourself and see the world and really taste different cultures and really experience different types of people and really just travel and enjoy a world outside your own perceived box.
So how long after Ringling Brothers folded did you transition to Circus Vargas?
Oh yeah, so right after Ringling Brothers, I actually moved to Orlando, Florida, and I immediately hit the theater scene in Orlando, Florida. Orlando, Florida, Central Florida, really is just it's bustling with great art and talent. I did shows at what was then
Froze.
the Garden Theater. I was
Are you
also
there?
yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
I was with the Winter Park Playhouse, a wonderful theater in Winter Park, Florida. I also performed with Opera Orlando. I did a few operas with them, and that was a lot of fun. And it was so interesting because when I just left the show, I went to audition with them, and the executive director, artistic director who auditioned me, he said, "Man, if you had got here a few weeks earlier, I would have given you the part for Rodolfo in La Boheme." And so I thought, wow. So he had actually offered me the understudy for that. There was the gentleman he had for it. He was wonderful, wonderful. And so I was really moved by that, and that really, told me I should just keep going with this. I actually opted to do. I connected with some failed non-for-profit. I was trying to do something there instead of taking the understudy role, but that's what it was. But I still did wonderful work with Opera Orlando. I did a couple of I did this wonderful commercial for Spectrum, the Spectrum network. And I just did a lot of different things. You hustle, you bounce around. I did some gigs here. I actually worked for Venardo's Circus. That is the circus founded by Kevin Venardo's, who was himself a ringmaster for Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey, as well as Circus Vargas. And he went and opened his own circus, and I worked for him for a few dates, and it was a lot of fun. It was so great to see a friend of mine really build something up like that, and now his show is really thriving. He has two units of it that are traveling and performing all over the country. I did little side gigs and things of that nature, but you just keep yourself going. And suddenly I get this call from Circus Vargas, and we worked things out, and here I am in my third year, finishing my third year with Circus Vargas, and I will be, here's the announcement, I will be returning for the fourth year.
Are you the only American performing? Everyone seems to be from Europe.
It's so funny because I didn't realize it until someone said it. So only American here. I am the only American. Yeah. I didn't even realize it. It was so funny. We laugh about it all the time. Yes, I'm the only American.
That's great. Well, we could go on for another half hour, and we will in the sequel. But for now, I just want to thank you, Johnathan. It's been a joy, and it's the show's called Paid to Dream, and you certainly are paid to follow your dream.
Oh, it's a great dream, and I'm really appreciative of you for having me here. I want everybody to know, children of all ages, keep the circus alive inside you.